everyone, and welcome back to Football a la Turca. This is our second episode. Thank you all for downloading our pilot episode and listening, of course. Very much appreciated. I'm back here, Kaan Bayazit. I'm joined once again by Burak Sezgin and Özer Dindjer. Özer, let me start with you. How was that popcorn of yours?
Oh, it was delightful. It was both salty and sweet and had all the ingredients to make a perfect snack. Not unlike the extraordinary game of football that we just watched. I mean, guys, I'm still out of breath. I had to throw my popcorn in the air after the 45 minutes. It was just extraordinary.
And you, Burak, any nails left?
No, I have ordered some brand new ones off Amazon tomorrow. And of course, they are Sarılacivert's color.
Okay, but before we get to that juicy stuff, let's start with the beginning. Let's start chronologically as we always do in our second episode here. Let's start with the Europa League. So, in the Europa League, we had two games this past Thursday. Both Fenerbahçe and Galatasaray were in action. The first match was at 18:55 Central European Time. Zenit took on Fenerbahçe. Fenerbahçe, of course, heading into this match with a 1-goal lead, but Zenit ended up winning this one 3-1, which edges Fenerbahçe out on aggregates 3-2. The only goal from Fenerbahçe came through Mehmet Topal. Was a really classy strike from him that was at the time to tie things up 1-1, but Zenit went up and over Fenerbahçe in the second half. Sardar Azmoun, the Iranian striker, was man of the match, I would say, with an assist and 2 goals. Burak, how did you experience this game?
So this was from the comfort of my sofa. And basically, 1-0 down after 4 minutes. I thought, here we go. That soon became 2. And then all of a sudden, Mehmet Topal decided to turn into Lionel Messi, scored the best goal of his career, I think, curling left foot into the top right-hand corner of the goalkeeper's goal. And I thought, okay, that's not too bad. And then coming out into the second half, we brought Tolgay on. I thought he brought some calmness to our play in the middle of the pitch. He was getting his foot on the ball and trapping it. The ball was just bouncing off our players a lot in the first half. I think it was Alper Potuk that came off. He's someone that's failed to deliver on so many occasions, and he was quite woeful in the first half. So Tolgay was having a good game. We had a good spell of possession football for about 5-6 minutes, and I thought, we're getting our foot a stamp on this. That was soon wasted by an Elif shot that ballooned over the bar. The Zenit goals, defensive errors by ourselves. The first goal, it was just a nothing cross that Hasan Ali got. I think it went past. Sadık failed to clear it. Not that great. Second goal, you got Sardar, the Iranian, out-jumped Hasan Ali to get that header in. And if we talk about the third goal, Mehmet Topal had a really good game, good defensive midfield play, but then he just got out-muscled by Sardar, who managed to poke the ball past. I think it was Harun playing in goal that day. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but that was just typical. It was just poor defensive play by Mehmet Topal, unfortunately. So the luck of the goal ran out. Mm-hmm. It got poked past us, and we just didn't manage to create many chances as well. Like I say, for some reason the ball just was bouncing off our players. No one could just put their foot on the ball and trap it, or it would just bounce off their shin or something. Nothing to do with the ground, perfectly good ground to play football on, but disappointing to go out. I was feeling quite positive going into the game, and then the first half performance made me think, I don't think we have a chance unless something special happens. That special something happened with Mehmet Topal, but we were unable to capitalise, unfortunately, and out we go.
What about you, Özer? How did you experience this match?
Yeah, I mean, as I said in last week's show, I did think that despite Fener's excellent performance in the first leg, 1-0 was a scoreline that was always very precarious, and I wasn't sure if it would be enough to take them through. Having said that, they did start the game relatively well, even though there were a couple of goals down. I mean, the football they were playing was actually quite impressive at times towards the end of the second half, and they really deserved the goal that they got in the end. But Topal, who had been playing so well and had the icing on the cake with his goal, just had a moment of madness, really, alongside the two defenders who were either side of him. And it was really a defending comedy of errors that led to Azimon's second goal. And it was a shame, really, because all the hard work the team had put together over the 1.5 legs until that point was just sort of thrown away. And had Fener been able to capitalise on their chances in the first leg, maybe a 2 or even a 3-0 cushion, which they were capable of in the first leg, it could have been so different. But Zenit at home, like we said in the last show, were very strong at home in Europe, having won every match. And it was always going to be a tough ask to go into that with a 1-0 lead and to try and qualify.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you, and I think we all kind of said it last week. Fenerbahce really missed an opportunity to get a decent goal margin last week. They should have made it at least 2. But again, in this game, Zenit made kind of a sluggish impression on me. The 2 goals they score, well, all 3 maybe, were far too easy. Fenerbahce were, in terms of possession, the dominant side. They I think in terms of just playing on the ball, they were better, but the goals they conceded were just far too easy. I think definitely Zenit's nowhere near 100% here. And another missed opportunity perhaps for Fenerbahce, but as Burak said, not a lot of chances to go with that possession. But I do have to point out that I think Tolgay really added something to the team. You saw when he came on that they started dominating midfield more as they had that previously done. And a slight correction for myself, of course, Mehmet Topal's goal wasn't the equalizer. It tied up the leg, but in favor for Fenerbahce at the time, based on away goals. So let's move on to the late game. Let's move on to Galatasaray's match at 8 o'clock Central European time, 9 o'clock, pardon me. They played Benfica and they played to a 0-0 draw. Unfortunately, again, not enough to go through. Of course, Galatasaray had lost the first leg 2-1. Very unfortunate disallowed goal from Emre Akbaba in the 85th minute. Let's talk about that because I think that was a definite blunder by the officials there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we get to that moment towards the end of the game, I think Jimbom really had a huge mountain to climb to qualify. Taking a look at what happened in the first leg, even though we didn't play that bad, the 2-1 scoreline at home was just too much of, I think, a mental hurdle to climb over. And sure enough, the team just weren't really able to rise to the occasion on the night. We had generally a poor performance all round, especially from Jagne up front, who was, well, useless to be quite blunt, and Belhanda too, who'd been elevated to a kind of godlike status against Kasımpaşa. He spent 90 minutes in a daze, but I don't want to stress on that too much, because I think actually the biggest disappointment for me on the night was Fatih Terim. His failure, or shall we say reluctance, to intervene in the game by bringing on any attacking options was hugely frustrating for all the fans watching. I think even the commentators on BT Sport, where I was watching it, they were quite bewildered. You know, they were saying, why are Galatasaray not attacking? Why are they not bringing these attacking substitutions on? They need 2 goals without reply. There was still 60 minutes or so when I think I tweeted, bring on Yunus, bring on Emre, bring these guys on. But Terim waited until the 82nd minute, I think, to make those changes. Yep. And I think by then the tie was already gone mentally. But to go to your point, Emre Akbaba's goal, you know, he came on, he made the impact, he scored a few minutes later, which kind of proved that he should have been brought on sooner. But anyway, it was definitely an incorrect decision from the ref. And if only they had VAR in the Europa League, I'm sure that would have been overturned.
I think it's it's baffling that they don't have VAR in the Europa League. They're using it, of course, now in the Champions League knockout stages. So
Exactly.
why not in the Europa League? I think it's just another sign from UEFA that the Europa League is just something nice to play with for the kids that got left out of the Champions League. And I think it's
unfortunately so.
I'm a huge fan of the Europa League. I think that's European football at its purest. Obviously, everyone wants to play Champions League for the money, but when we're talking about what is European football, I think the Europa League comes much closer to what it epitomizes than the Champions League. So I really find it a shame that the UEFA kind of treat it as their ugly little stepchild. But maybe, I'm just trying to get into Fatih Terim's head here, maybe his idea was, look, if we score, it's going to be very difficult for us to hold out because Benfica are a great home side. They have a great home reputation. Maybe he deliberately left it late, hoping that they could get that late goal and then just in that momentum go up and over. And I feel like I'm saying it all the time, but that's an expression I think that's very adequate here. With that momentum in their way, maybe go up and over, and then it's much easier not to get a reply because, I mean, if you score 1-0 after 30 minutes, the chances of Benfica getting a goal back are very big. Whereas if you score in the 80th minute or in the 77th minute or something like that, then you got that mental advantage. Something that's going to be a recurring subject in this podcast. And then maybe you can get that second one, and it's much more difficult, I think, for a team to respond if you go down late in this type of a match than it is if you go down early on. What do you think, Burak, about the match and what you've heard so far?
Well, I watched it straight after the Fenerbahçe game, so I was already in a disappointed mood. And I thought Benfica started well, quick, intricate, fast passing. I think they had a couple of chances, put wide of the post. Galatasaray didn't really seem to be creating anything. I was really disappointed with Belhanda's dead ball delivery, whether it was from free kicks or corners. I just don't think he got anything right. But then we had Diagne, however you pronounce it, which just looked robotic, not offering much movement. But that could be because he wasn't getting the good service that he was used to at Kasımpaşa from Trezeguet. But it's just a shame. I mean, like Ozzy and Kaan, like you said yourselves, I was just thinking, just get some subs on. Why wait till the 82nd minute around in 60, 70, 80, nothing happened. And I looked on the bench, it's like you've got Emre Akbaba, who was in amazing form before he unfortunately got injured. He can change a game. You've got Yunus Akgün, who's full of pace and running and that youthful fearlessness that could have caused some problems. But it was a case of perfectly good goal disallowed, unfortunately. Fatih Terim came out and blaming the referees afterwards, and I thought, well, you can't really say that. You should have made substitutions a little bit earlier. But maybe he did gamble, like you said, and he thought, let's try and get a late goal and then go completely balls out attack, all out attacking to see if we can grab the second one. But if that was his game plan, obviously it's backfired, and unfortunately we got no more Turkish teams left in Europe. And I like to echo what you said about the Europa League being European football at its finest, where you can go to these obscure grounds and stadiums like somewhere random in Switzerland or like Poland,
Iceland, places. Norway, really
Belarus.
Europe.
Yeah.
Belarus, exactly. But that's the unfortunate conclusion, I think, and it's been a very disappointing European campaign for all Turkish clubs. Beşiktaş, Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray having a very average European campaign. Başakşehir wetting the bed again, and of course Akhisar. That was always going to be tough. I mean, getting drawn in pot 4, instantly going into the group stages. That's always tough for a team like that. We saw it a couple of years ago with Konyaspor too. That first season in Europe is just so difficult. I can't really blame them, but a team like Başakşehir, for me, they need to do more. They need to carry their weight more in the coefficients. that's the biggest issue, I think, in the last 3 seasons or 4 seasons even, I believe. They did decent, like average one season. They had that half-decent Europa League campaign, I think it was last season, where they did really well in the Champions League qualifiers, went out against Sevilla, but then went down to the Europa League group stages, and apparently the Europa League group stages are beneath them because they just played their B team the entire time. So I think that's another one of those things with Başakşehir. It's very difficult for them to win any sympathy, I think, from new fans if you do that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, the past couple of years we had Beşiktaş keeping the train going, but now this season really not a single one of the Turkish clubs delivering beyond expectations, and then we have our worst coefficient year in 7 years, guys.
I mean that really is pathetic, to be honest with you. With all the, relatively speaking, the money that's coming into Turkish football, the players who are being signed, the new stadia, this, that, it doesn't make sense why we're regressing, why all of our clubs are regressing in football. I know that there are certain financial constraints and everything, but we don't. I mean, looking at the football that we play, we're not actually that terrible. I mean, Galatasaray and Benfica, there wasn't a huge gulf between them. There wasn't a huge gulf between Zenit and Fener, but we just don't have that finishing edge, that clinical edge that the other teams seem to have.
Yeah, but I think that might just be a little bit of a wrong, misguided image we get, because I think, for example, Benfica here never really in any problems. They didn't really have to play their best football at any point. Same thing really for Zenit. They I mean, like I said last time, they just had a month break or 2 months break. They're basically still in preseason mode. I think the performance of our Turkish clubs in Europe this season has been abysmal, to be fair. I mean, Fenerbahçe was okay in the group stages. Beşiktaş were poor. Galatasaray, same thing really. They've really struggled the last couple of seasons. I think I saw a statistic. They have like 2 wins in 26 or 27 matches, I believe, in Europe.
Yeah, but on a positive note, if you could call it a positive note from the game against Benfica, it was the first clean sheet away from home in Europe in 24 games. How about that?
That's positive for sure. And on that note, let's transition into the Super League matchday 23 results. On Friday, let's start with Göztepe and Trabzonspor. This match was played at 9 local time. Göztepe lost this one at home 1-3 to Trabzonspor. Goals here coming. Deniz Kara equalized from the penalty spot in the 71st minute after Hugo Rodallega had scored in the 27th. Then Abdülkadir Parmak, not Abdülkadir Onur, another Abdülkadir, scored with an emphatic finish. Was really a great goal. 1-2 after 73 minutes, so just 2 minutes after Göztepe had equalized, guys. And then in extra time, Kadu scored an unfortunate own goal. Again, that was Abdülkadir who crossed in the ball. I'm not sure if that was Abdülkadir Parmak or if that was Ömer. I don't know if Ömer
it was in fact Parmak as well. Yeah, he was involved in that goal as well.
So that's the 5th loss in 6 matches for Göztepe. They did get a win a couple of weeks ago against Alanyaspor. If you guys remember that tremendous overhead kick from Nabil Gilas. And then, of course, there were 2 penalty shouts in the first half on Cameron Jerome. I'm sure Burak will wave those off.
Complete.
Yeah. And then and there was
in the bin, Cameron. Get in the bin.
And there was also a disallowed goal from Trabzonspor here. But what do you guys think of this match? Let me start with you, Özer.
I'm very concerned about Göztepe. I know they've just reappointed Tamer Tuna as their coach, which is interesting given that he parted ways with the club just under a year ago. I really want them to do well and to stay in the league because they add so much colour and passion and flavour to the Super League. They have the highest attendance ratio of all the clubs in the league. They're building a new stadium. So the future is bright for Göztepe, and it would be a huge, huge setback if they were to be relegated. But unfortunately, they're just not getting the results that they're looking for in the last couple of months. So hopefully Tamertuna can turn things around.
What about you, Burak? What's your opinion on the match?
I thought Abdulkadir changed it completely. Just, the goal and the assist, he goes step out in a worrying run of form, and they only won one of their last 6 and they've lost the other 5. So it's good for us, good for Fenerbahçe, because we go moving above them in the table. But like you say, like we mentioned last week, good club heritage, good fan support, new stadia. Would be a shame if they went down. But I just think their run of bad form caught up with them. Trabzon just proved a little bit too much with Rodallega. I think he's on 9 or 10 goals now, and with
12 already, I think.
12.
He's catching up with Jagner then.
Slowly but surely. Yeah.
Slowly but surely. I think Abdulkadir Parmak is one to watch as well for the remainder of the season. He's got 6 in 14, I believe, in across the league and the cup, and he's just going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Trabzonspor. They really do have. They've been bringing up those young players that the big clubs really haven't been doing. We see some kids with Galatasaray on the bench and such, but not really getting those chances. And Trabzonspor have been successfully implementing those new kids every year. Yusuf Yazıcı a couple of years ago, of course, Abdulkadir Ömer last season. Now this guy, and of course the goalkeeper Orjan. So that's really something that should be commended for when it comes to Trabzonspor. Unfortunately, they can't really translate that in consistent performances because, I mean, this was a good, solid win for them, but then, of course, it comes off the back of a 2-0 home defeat against Alanyaspor. So that's kind of the story with Trabzonspor. It's up and down a lot. There's definitely a lot of potential in that team. There's a lot of talent, but to find that right mix, it continues to be a struggle for them, and they really haven't been in the title race since, I believe, 2011, when they finished third in that... was it 2012? Sorry, when they finished third in the Super Final season, and then of course the year before, where we're not going to delve too much into that. But let's move on to the next match: Çaykur Rizespor against Yeni Malatyaspor. This ended 3-0, perhaps a little bit of a misleading scoreline, but Atif Şeşu gets the scoring started in the 27th minute. Him again, Burak, and then. Prejus Nakulma and Vedat Muric get goals in second half stoppage time. So really an even match, I would say. 5th win in 6 for Çaykur Rizespor. They've been unbeaten in 2019, so that other result was a draw, obviously. They got 12 points in the first half of the season, and they're already up to 16 now in just 6 games in 2019. So that's more than a doubling of their point tally. Gökhan Akan with several crucial saves, including one right before the already relatively early 1-0. That wasn't the 7th minute, I believe. Sorry, I think I said 27th. There was also a penalty call for Malatyaspor that was first given by the referee in the 75th minute. That was when it was still 1-0. But that was overturned after he consulted VAR. Let's start with that one because that's probably the biggest talking point out of this match. Burak, did you see and what did you think about the decision on this penalty?
Well, I thought I've seen them given and not given. The foot was quite high and there was a little bit of follow through. And I think anywhere else on the pitch, the ref would give that as a foul. So I'm thinking, well, if it happens in the penalty box, what's the difference between it happening, let's say, on the halfway line rather than in the penalty box? So I thought it could have gone either way, but it's what the referee interprets it to be, whether it was dangerous play, for example. And for me, I would have let the penalty stand, just because I've seen penalties given for far less this season in the league.
Okay. What about you, Özer? What did you think? Penalty or no?
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with that comment. I mean, both players kind of went for the ball. You could argue they both had the foot raised high, and it's another decision that went to VAR and just created more controversy. But to your initial point about the match, I think it was a very, very exciting game, actually. And the 3-0 scoreline is very very misleading indeed.
Yeah.
I think Malatya could have actually been 2-3-1 up in the first half. They really had some fantastic chances on goal, which the goalkeeper Gökhan saved. And Rize only really sprang back into action in the 95th minute when they scored the goal to make it 2-0. And then I believe it was the 98th minute when Nakuma scored the goal to make it 3. So by the end, it really flattered the scoreline, I think. But it was a great game, and Malatya will be shocked as to how they were able to get thrashed in such a huge scoreline in that match.
Artif also hit the post when they were 1-0 up, so he could have had
yes,
2.
That's right. That's true. It's good to see Artif Sheshu back and kind of in good form again, because he added a lot to the league.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a talented striker.
Gökhan Akan, great goalkeeper, of course, great young goalkeeper. But just on the VAR decision there, initially I was definitely inclined to agree with you guys. I think this was one of those. I think this was a penalty initially, but then when I looked at the VAR decision correctly again, because I don't know if you guys watched the full game or the summary, but in the extended version of the VAR discussion and then the replays, you can actually clearly see that both guys go up with high feet. But then there's, like Burak said, a follow-through, but you can see that the attacking player actually goes down, acts like he's hit before there's any chance of connection there. So it was a correct decision in my opinion. It was a simulation for a penalty. And I think a very good interjection by VAR there, but very difficult to see. So I definitely understand why there's controversy, but ultimately I think it was an extremely good decision by the referee and by VAR. And it should be said, I mean, the ref could have easily let that stand. And there's often the discussion where referees get kind of corrected by VAR and where they basically... their ego gets in the way, and they're like, no, I'm going to stick with what I initially called. But I think it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. And I think the referee did an excellent job there. So for me, it was not a penalty.
There were some theatrics, I think, from the Malatyaspor player. I'm not sure if that would have influenced the referee's decision.
I think it did. I think he acted like he got hit by the follow-through, which made it a penalty in the referee's eyes. But in the replay, you could see that he actually didn't, and that he faked the collision. Maybe there was a little bit of follow-through, but he was already acting like he got hit by a truck before that actually happened. So I think that's why ultimately VAR intervened and why the referee went back on his decision. Let's move on to Saturday results then. The early match on Saturday was Sivasspor against Antalyaspor. That one was at 1:30 local time. Sivasspor at home, but Antalyaspor getting the win here, guys, 1-2. Nazim Sangare with an amazing goal in the 36 minutes from long distance, 1-0 to Antalya at that point. Dukara then doubled the scoreline from the penalty spot in the 45th minute, and Aruna Kone pulled one back in the 65th minute. It's the first win for Antalya in 2019. Kone and Mert Akam both had big opportunities to score after the 2-1 goal by Kone, but the scoreline reads 1-2 at full time, of course. So don't know if either of you caught this match. It was pretty good as well, I would say.
Yeah, this is another one where the scoreline doesn't quite justify the gameplay from Sivas in this case, because like you said, they had two 100% goal chances that were missed, and really probably the fair result from this match would have been a draw. But I'm very happy to see Antalya get back to winning ways. The Sangare goal, though, wow, that was an absolute worldie. If there was a competition for goal of the week, that definitely would be a contender.
For sure, but there's a couple more I think that could lay claim to that title. But he,
including
for me,
some from tonight.
Yeah, Nazim Sangare for me, one of the revelations when it comes to Antalyaspor. Not the most exciting team, but he's definitely one that always stands out in a positive way, I think. What about you, Burak? Do you have anything to add about this match?
I think Kearney really should have grabbed the equaliser. Mm-hmm. He had some very easy chances. I've seen him put those away when he used to play in the Premiership, so I'm quite surprised that he missed those. And no qualms with the penalty decision either. Just I think that was an open and shut case. hit the guy from behind, and there wasn't any, let's say, arguments to say why have you given this. So at least we have like an easy penalty decision for a referee to give as well.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to the midday match, that was Alanyaspor against Kasımpaşa, and this one ended in 3-0 for Sergen Yalçın and his guys. Papis Cisse getting a brace in this match in the 7th minute and in the 53rd minute, and then Josef Sural scoring just before full time in the 89th minute. This is 19 points in 12 matches for Alanyaspor under Sergen. They already have 13 points in the second half of the season. 11 goals in 70 matches for Papi Cisse, the former Newcastle United man, of course. And then there's a question of the first goal. I think that's the most controversial one. It was also a VAR check, and not really a VAR check, but VAR was checking it and communicating with the referee whether there wasn't offside or not. I think this is an interesting debate. I don't know if you guys watched this closely, but what did you think about the first goal that Alanyaspor scored? Burak, did you manage to catch whether you thought it was offside or not?
I must have completely missed this. I don't know how. So I kind of like focused more on the red card and Kasımpaşa's fall from grace. So if I may be excused for this far, question, I don't know how I've missed that.
Yeah,
so
no worries. It's not really a controversy, I think, and good that you remind me of that, because I completely forgot the red card. What did you think of the first goal, Özer, before we get into that red card?
So this is when the ball kind of came in off the post, and it was called VAR for offside, I believe, right, rather than a foul.
Initially, I think the check was to see whether the ball came off the defender or if it came off the attacker, and it ended up coming off the defender, which, according to the new rule, if the defender deliberately heads the ball, the offside player is not ruled offside.
Because he's not interfering with the.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds counterintuitive to me.
Yeah.
And I'm recalling the goal now because the Alanyaspor striker kind of fumbles the ball into the net and hits his head against the post, I think. But I think I think this could have been given. It couldn't have been given. It's very hard to tell really if the ball changes direction too much from when it comes off the defender. But the real VAR talking point in this game for me, like Burak said as well, was the red card on Ivan Popov, which is, VAR is coming out in all of its glory in the Turkish league. I think every different scenario is going straight to VAR. This was a really interesting one.
Red card or not for you, Özer?
I think it was a red card, actually.
Yeah. You, Burak?
I think it was.
I've seen worse challenges get yellows in the league.
Yeah, but you don't have to judge it like that. Is it a red card or not, in your opinion?
I would say no. Personally.
Okay, for me it's a red. But for the first goal, like, I just want to pick up on that again. I do fully agree with you when you say it's counterintuitive, Uzi, because do you remember the goal that Beşiktaş conceded against Antalyaspor earlier this season at Vodafone Park? The first goal, if I'm not mistaken, where Adriano heads the ball to in the path of Suleiman Dukara, who's completely offside. He's like 2 meters offside, but it's allowed to go through because it was a deliberate header from Adriano, and Dukara ends up scoring the goal. But for me, I mean, here the defender heads the ball deliberately, sure, but he is doing so because he's being put under pressure by an attacker. So for me, this should be this should be offside in my opinion. This is offside, obviously, according to the rule book now, since this changed, this to me, which makes absolutely no sense because it's completely counterintuitive. This is not offside, but I can't wrap my head around it just yet. For me, that's offside, but yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the Sunday result, and that early match was very important with the relegation battle in mind. Major implications here. Ankaragücü taking on Büyükşehir Erzurumspor, and Ankaragücü get a very late win, 2-1 against Erzurumspor. Tyler Boyd had initially pulled Ankaragücü 1-0 up in the 25th minute, but Christian Opset with a free kick in the 47th minute pulled things level, but that same Christian Opset would see a second yellow card later in the second half, and then ultimately It's Devel Urgil who gets the winning goal in, I believe, the 4th minute of stoppage time. He had already previously, just before that, he had already scored a goal, but it was ruled off because of a handball. That was quite clear, I think. No real debate about that. But, I mean, the important part here, definitely that second yellow for upset. And the thing is, of course, VAR cannot interfere on yellow cards. To me, this so often, you mentioned it last week even, Uzi, where there's these cases in Galatasaray's matches where there could have been a second yellow for Diagne, a second yellow for, I don't know, whoever else. And we see this all the time where I think, especially with the big teams, there's these second yellow positions where the referees kind of squeeze their eyes shut for a moment, even though the fouls are clear yellow cards. But then this guy, he has the unfortunate misery of playing for Erzurumspor, and he doesn't get away with it. I thought it was a little bit harsh. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it was quite harsh. But in the previous match that we just discussed, Popos was shown the yellow, and then the referee went to VAR and then realized it was a straight red and showed him a straight red. Mm-hmm. So he is able to question the legitimacy of a yellow decision, but not of a second yellow.
No.
Correct?
VAR can only interject if there's a question whether the color should be changed. So if it's right. A yellow, but it's a red card offense in the IFR, then they can interfere. But if it's just a yellow and it's a second yellow, it doesn't matter. They cannot interfere on a normal yellow card. They can only interfere if it's, for example, a clear error and it should be a red card. It should be a sending off. Then he can interfere. Also a little bit counterintuitive, perhaps on second yellows, but I think it's not too bad because otherwise you're going to have too much intervention. Yeah. For example, remember the 2-2 Galatasaray Fenerbahçe where Galatasaray, I think, complained about why was there no VAR check for the throw-in. There's no VAR checks for throw-in, there's no VAR checks for corners. It's only for penalties, only for red cards, ball over the line or not over the line, stuff like that, like really crucial, impactful decisions.
Well, I've actually wiped that derby out of my mind, so I don't remember anything of that. So
okay. Well, Burak, you surely remember.
In this game, it looked like the two players were really crashing into each other at speed. Mm-hmm. So I guess that makes the referee's decision a lot more difficult.
Yeah. What about you, Burak? What did you think of the second yellow for upset?
I thought it was a second yellow. Like you say, we've seen these second yellows go punished far too often. There probably should have been one tonight, which we'll get to, I'm sure, when we talk about the game. Like you say, I think Jadne should have maybe had a couple of second yellows to go into a red. But like I say, maybe there is you play for one of the bigger teams, you get a little bit more protection from the ref, who kind of, goes to those situations. Yeah. He looks away, and your lowly Erzurumspor, you're famous for being old and having that song by Ibrahim Arkal. So, what can you do?
But what do you think you get? What's your personal opinions on second yellow card? Should there be a little bit more leeway, or is it just the same thing as the first yellow card? If you would give it as a first yellow, you should give it as a second yellow.
I think in the interest of consistency, you just have to give it based on each position. If it's a yellow, if it deserves a yellow, it should be awarded a yellow, irrespective of whether it's a second or not. Unfortunately,
I agree. And also, just a shout out to Tyler Boyd for his back heel flick goal. You should definitely look that up.
Fantastic goal.
Line. We wouldn't expect that from a Kiwi. So
no. Absolutely brilliant goal. It was Didier Drogba-esque. It really reminded me of the goal he scored against Real Madrid in 2013. It was absolutely effortlessly classed.
Yeah, don't forget Dembaba against Trabzonspor or Ludovic Juli in the Champions League.
Yes.
The first one I can remember. But let's move on to the midday match. Konyaspor against Kayserispor. A very surprising result for me here. Konyaspor losing at home 1-0 to Kayserispor. Deniz Turuc getting the only goal in the match in the 59th minute. And not as you would expect from a set piece or anything like that, just a goal from open play. First loss for Konyaspor in 2019. They had previously won twice and drew 3 times. Now they have lost once as well. This is the 3rd win in a row for Kayserispor, and they are still unbeaten in 2019. Feisty match, I think. There were a couple of penalty shouts for Konyaspor in the first half. A disallowed goal from Kayseri as well. in the first and in the second half. Both were for offside, and Skubic hitting the bar, but also offside. Was this a deserved win, Burak? What do you think?
Well, you know my thoughts on Kayserispor. Shamil got the assist. I don't like that guy. He's got a horrendous haircut as well. And it's just there was an incident where I thought that Umut Bulut went in with his studs on a Konyaspor player. That adds to what you mentioned about the match being a little bit feisty. I think Fofana just didn't come to play, unfortunately, this game. For some reason, he played so well against Fenerbahçe last week. They kind of had a little bit of a dip in performance. I'm not sure if it was the physical nature that got to him, but I don't know. It's tough to say. Both teams haven't had good chances, and having seen the highlights and not watched the full game, you've got to say it was always going to be on a knife edge. 1-0 takes it home. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say it probably is deserved if you took your chance. And Skubic did it at the bar, but he said it was offside.
It was a very late call from the linesman.
They're instructed to wait long so that if it's a goal and it turns out it wasn't offside, that VAR can still award it. Now, if he immediately flags and the referee disallows it, then you can't really go back on the decision. But if you let the play go, the goal and the goal happens, then of course if you're already gonna flag and then players are gonna stop defending, and then they can claim, hey, wait, we stopped because the flag is up. So that's why they do that. It's also with VAR. So, so what do you think? Justice served here? Kayserispor, the rightful winners, is he?
Yeah, they're experiencing a mini resurgence under Hikmet Karaman, and they're playing some interesting, neat football. In this game, I suppose they had some good chances, so they probably on balance deserve to win. I was actually quite surprised at how little Konyaspor really showed up front. I expect them to be much more solid at home in front of their fans.
Yeah, definitely. There were very few opportunities for Konyaspor, to the credit of Kayserispor, of course, and they were the more dangerous side, I think. So, for me, the rightful winners of this match, and they're going to be a tough nut to crack going forward. They're in good form. Let's move on to the main events of Sunday night. Let's start with Başakşehir here, because this is probably the least interesting match of the two. This was initially started already on Saturday. Only 5 minutes were played. Due to snowfall and bad vision, this match was cancelled after 5 minutes. Was recommenced on Sunday at 7 local time. Başakşehir winning 3-0 over Bursaspor. Pretty easy win for them. Mosora scoring in the 17th minute. That was an interesting goal to watch. Edin Visca doubling the scoreline in the 40th minute after a fabulous assist from Arda Turan. And Dembaba putting the cherry on top of the cake in the 90th minute. I got word from the Bursa camp. A friend of mine has some connections within Bursaspor. They were very unhappy about the match being postponed. They were adamant that the match could be played on Saturday, and according to them, it was really Başakşehir pressuring the referee into cancelling the match, which I found quite interesting, but ultimately the weather conditions didn't seem to be all that much better on Sunday, and Başakşehir didn't have any problems with Bursaspor. Of course, you could question how mentally prepared were Bursaspor. You go into a match and you're ready to play it, and then it gets stopped after 5 minutes. Sometimes it's difficult, I think, then to recharge yourself for the match the next day. And of course, Galatasaray have huge experience with this. Their iconic win over Juventus in similar circumstances, but at least that one was justifiably postponed. But what did you guys think of the postponement of this match initially, and then the result? I think not really a surprise though.
Yeah, I think the surprise wasn't much of a result. Bursaspor, unfortunately, have become quite toothless this season. So anything other than a Başakşehir win would have been a surprise for me. As for the conditions, sure, it was snowing, but it wasn't. I don't think it was worthy of being postponed or cancelled the match. I think there was a thin layer of snow, but with an orange ball and just a little bit of attempt to clear it from the sides, from the touchlines, I think the game could easily have been continued. Definitely seen football played in worse.
What do you think, Burak?
Same as Ozzy. I've seen football played in worse conditions in Turkey and in England.
Yeah.
I think Başakşehir, with all the money they have, could afford some under-pitch heating.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I think that's the thing we should really address. Exactly. There was no preparation, no attempt to make the pitch playable beforehand.
I mean, Galatasaray put a sail on their pitch because they played initially played the night after, of course. But you could see the difference. I mean, I posted two pictures I took almost simultaneously. Of course, the timestamps are going to differ because the Başakşehir match started 5 minutes later. But I basically switched back and forward between the games and took print screens, and these stadiums are, I believe, 28 kilometers apart, and the difference in pitch quality was mind-boggling almost. I mean, one looked like a skating range and the other one looked fine. I mean, Galatasaray's pitch looked fine. Başakşehir's pitch looked like it had frozen even more overnight. I guess you can't really put a sail on it once it's already that full of snow, maybe, but I don't know, it felt a lack of professionalism from Başakşehir, I think. And the result, of course, no big surprise here. Başakşehir comfortably winning, Bursaspor in deep trouble. They've moved into the relegation zone now because, of course, Ankaragücü moved out with that win. And let's move on to the next match. Galatasaray against Akhisar was played simultaneously. Obviously, didn't start 5 minutes into the match. And the only goal in this match comes very late in the 90th minute. 5th minute of 5 minute stoppage time. It was, 4th minute. Kostas Mitroğlu getting the goal here. Well, the first thing I want to talk about with you guys, because this is something that was a big subject among fans from other clubs mainly, were the 5 minutes warranted? Uzi, let me start with you. What did you think? Was it a 5 minutes extra time type of match?
I mean, I'm still celebrating that goal. I'm still reeling. It's like it's happening right in front of my eyes all day. It's been playing.
He's dancing the Çertaki right now.
I'm still dancing. I'm still doing exactly that. If only we had a video over here. Well, as to the 5 minutes, to be honest with you, at the time I might have even challenged the 5 minutes. I think I was pleasantly surprised. Let's put it that way, that the referee had given us 5 minutes. I don't recall any long periods of injury or any extended VAR decisions in the second half to warrant 5 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think there were any VAR interjections in this match at all.
And I thought to myself, with 5 minutes, that's still a lot of football to be played in that time. Mm-hmm. If only some hero could just rise and score a goal. That's all I was praying for. And it got to the 90th minute, and I thought, oh god, this was a straightforward game, straightforward 3 points on paper that I had playing against the rock bottom team in the snow, the whole romance and drama of the snow of Istanbul. And I thought, listen, Jimbom loved the snowy games. It's a shame that we're going to throw away this great record today. We had the whole mysterious injury with Ndiagne before the match, which is still unresolved, by the way.
Yeah.
We had 45, 50 crosses in the first 90 minutes. Most of them aimless, weren't going anywhere. A lot of possession. Exactly. Cross and hope, hit and hope football. A lot of possession, a lot of neat plays in midfield.
Just a wink to my friend Nima, by the way. I stole that off of him.
And it was reaching a real point of frustration in the 90th minute. And focusing now on Kostas Mitroğlu, he made a few classy passes in the second half, but he did miss a sitter in the first half, a real sitter.
In the second half too, I think.
In the second half too, yeah. And I could just hear the hot lashings of criticism from fans after the final whistle. Yeah, this guy missed. We've got Ndiagne, we've got Kostas. No, they're both firing blanks. We've signed 2 duds. He can't even score against the bottom team. Blah blah blah. And then, 94th minute, just like the mythical phoenix rising from the ashes, he shoots and scores a goal of heroic importance. I mean,
amazing celebration.
Just amazing celebration. Yeah. All the players, the subs came on, ran down the pitch.
Bench. Like they won the league, but it's completely justified, I think, because had they dropped 2 points here, it might have been over for them for the title challenge, and now they keep their hopes alive. Burak,
Absolutely.
What did you think of the match, and what did you think of the 5 minutes of stoppage time?
I wasn't able to catch the whole match. The 5 minutes, I thought that's a bit generous. That's like, almost like the Fergie time. I thought it's Terim time. He's got a little bit more than he should. And then I remember I was watching the end of the game. I remember texting you guys saying, saying, can they pull it off? And I'm thinking, it's Galatasaray. They'll have to score. I think that's the second time they've scored in the 90th plus minute this season as well. And
Ryan Donk did that earlier this season.
Away against Antalyaspor, that's right,
But then I thought, what the hell was the goalkeeper thinking? He came out and you either have to
that was terrible,
or just clatter the player, just do a Tony Schumacher in the Cup and just take the player out. But he just got nothing on it, and then Kostas decided to break some plates and then bang it.
Exactly.
The wherewithal of Mitroglou as well has to be pointed out there, because of course Lukac caught out, but Kostas Mitroglou already signaling to his team, here, give me the pass here, and then he drops it in perfectly. It was a really good finish by him, but obviously, I think Milan Lukac there, complete and utter error. He doesn't have to be there. He gives the goal away, but it has to be said, he had made some really good saves prior to that. The bars preventing Galatasaray, and I didn't think Galatasaray played a good match at all, but they deserved the win because they were just the better team. I think they should have scored twice, 3 times before this goal. It just wouldn't happen. It was one of those matches where the ball just wouldn't go in. It wasn't their best match, but they were clearly the better side, though.
Yeah, and you're right, because Lukac, had the game finished 0-0, Lukac would have by far been man of the match. He played an excellent game of football until the 95th minute. He really kept the team in it. But then this moment of madness, and he just comes raging out of his goal. But I just want to focus on what you said previously about Mitroglou's technique there, because it wasn't easy at all. He was almost faced with his back to the goal, and he had to kind of pivot on the spot there. He wasn't able to generate too much power because he couldn't follow through with his leg. Yeah, and there was also a busy penalty area as well. There was still 2 Akhisarspor defenders in the box, and he was able to thread it through in a very kind of gentle, calm, and elegant way. And I think there's a lot of beauty around that goal. It shouldn't be seen as just a kind of last-minute open goal. There's a lot of elegance surrounding that.
It wasn't.
And I think,
completely agree with you there. And you know what? The 5 minutes stoppage time, yes or no? I think this wasn't really a 5 minute match, but I don't really think that's a huge point of contention. I think if anything, there's the Mariano thing. He got a yellow card early on. Should have probably gotten a second yellow. That was pretty clear. Second yellow type of offense, and him and Belhanda going into it. Belhanda livid at Mariano after that. I think it was right after that fall or just at halftime. He basically cussing him out, calling him all sorts of names, and maybe rightfully so, because he kind of put a bomb under Galatasaray's match there. If Mariano gets sent off in the first half, then you have 45 plus minutes to play, a man down, and at home, doesn't matter where, home or away, but you really put your team in a bad position. So I completely understand Belhanda's reaction there. And that's maybe again the luck of the big team, that you don't get that second yellow, like I was talking about earlier with Erzurum. And it's kind of why I brought up that point, because I wanted to go into it here, because for me this was the same thing, maybe even more clear, because the foul was definitely warranted of a yellow. And
look, I'm an honest guy, so I should say he should actually have been shown a third yellow card after the Kostas goal as well, because I don't know if you noticed this, it kind of slipped under the radar, but he just ran into the crowd, jumping into the fences and jumping and celebrating with the fans, which usually is a bookable offence. So he's a lucky boy. He's a lucky boy.
True, but I am not a fan of those types of cards. I think that pure emotion should not be.
I totally agree, but
should not be.
Unfortunately, those are the rules. Yeah.
Let's move over to Monday. Beşiktash versus Fenerbahçe. What a match for the neutral. Not so fun for Beşiktaş fans though. 3-3 at full time, but who would have thought that at halftime? Beşiktaş 3-0 up at halftime. Gökhan Gönül opening the scoring in the 10th minute, refused to celebrate classy act from the former Fenerbahçe man. Burak Yilmaz then in the 18th minute from the penalty spot, and in the 2nd minute of first half stoppage time scored the 3rd goal, making it 3. But Miha Zajc pulled one back in the 55th minute, and then Sadık Çiftpınar scoring the 2nd goal in the 62nd minute, and then Hasan Ali Kaldırım just 5 minutes later again. Screamer from outside the box, 67th minute, 3-3. That was all she wrote. Fenerbahçe making an heroic comeback in the second half. 3 goals in the time span of 12 minutes. But what must Beşiktaş be thinking after that result? Şenol Güneş... I'm gonna throw to you first, Burak, but I have some stuff to say here.
Well, I was quietly confident going into the match just because it's a derby and form just goes out the window. But still, I was speaking to some Fenerbahçe friends of mine, and they're saying, "No, bro, come on, they're gonna beat us. We're awful." But I thought, derby matches, and then Tolga gives the ball away in the first 10 seconds of the game, and I just think, great, here we go. But, I mean, the first half, it was just as if, Beşiktaş had just, they were like rabid dogs, bulls running down in Pamplona, just completely bulldozing through all Fener. They just seemed more...
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, we were just, our players, the ball was bouncing off us. We couldn't keep possession. We just looked a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of press and the high line that Beşiktaş were defending with, nearly, almost on the Fenerbahçe penalty area. And then, the first goal goes in. I think it was a bit of a contentious free kick, just because there was shirt pulling from both Burak and from Sadık going on there.
Yeah, that was a team throughout the match. Those two were constantly at each other's throats, pulling each other. Burak making himself wide, Sadık coming into his back. It was really a tussle between those two all match.
I think they swapped shirts after the game as well. I know. I thought, so I'm like, well, guys,
Understandable. I mean, that's in the spirit of the game, yeah. But what did you think of the penalty? Let's. I'm gonna throw to you first, Özer, because I know you had something to say about it at halftime. What did you think? Was it a penalty or not?
No, I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was a very harsh call, to be honest.
Okay. What about you, Burak? Penalty or not?
I thought it was. I think that's going to be a foul anywhere else on a pitch. As well, it might not get the VAR treatment anywhere else on a pitch.
No, obviously it wouldn't, because it's not a red card offence. So.
Yeah. And seeing it in slow motion, it was. You can see Hasan Ali clearly kick, unintentionally, because he just misses the ball. Mm-hmm. He kicks Gökhan Gönül's calf, and he goes down. And if you're, thinking the letter of the law, he's missed the ball, kicked the man's leg, he's gone down, and Gökhan Gönül is, quite injury prone anyway, just because he's probably played with painkiller and injections for nearly most of his career.
Yeah,
he's always going to go down. But throwback to when he scored and didn't celebrate. He's classy. One of my biggest angers at Aziz Yıldırım was letting him go when he should have just paid him the money he asked for. So, but yeah, I think that's a penalty to me. I have no objections. I don't feel wronged or anything by the referee's decision to go to VAR and double check it. It was just, Hasan Ali was just too late, and that just happens sometimes.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, this is a clear foul anywhere else on the pitch, like you said. This is the thing with penalties, though. Fans often have this inclination of, is it enough for a penalty? But that's really the wrong mindset for a referee. That can be the mindset going into a penalty situation. And I think too often before VAR, you had referees who were kind of in the spirit of the match sometimes not giving a penalty, not because it wasn't a clear penalty error, but because it wasn't deserved. Sometimes I feel like referees play the judge of a game or who deserves something, but no, it's whether it's a foul or it's not a foul, black and white. Yes, as a referee you have to have empathy, you have to feel the spirit of the game, but that does not apply when it comes to red cards, does not apply when it comes to penalties, I think. Even yellow cards, okay, I mean sometimes you have these referees who are utter incomplete dicks and give yellow cards for everything, like we saw a couple of weeks ago with Fenerbahçe, which was absolutely ridiculous. I think I don't remember who it was against, but it was constantly yellow, and it's just that's not the right way. But it's not the right way either, I think, where you go and ignore clear fouls. For me, clear penalty, not the biggest foul, obviously, but it's a foul in the box, penalty, quite clear. There were also VAR checks on Gökhan Gönül's goal and on Sadik's goal. For me personally, I don't think either goal should have had a VAR check. I don't really know what that was for. I didn't go and check on the Gökhan Gönül goal, but he did go and check on the Sadik goal. And I mean, for me, Sadik just goes up, jumps higher. Yes, he's kind of in on his I think it was Dorukhan's back or something, but it's football. It's gonna be some physical contact. For me, he wasn't leaning on him, he wasn't pushing him, so correct decision there too. I don't know what you guys thought about that VAR check, and I mean what was going on in the mind of of Cüneyt Çakır, who was in the VAR room. What do you think, Ozzy?
Honestly, I have no idea. I mean, neither of them deserve to go to VAR, I don't think, and they're both kind of killed the spontaneity of the moment there, I think. But I was actually going to ask you on what you thought about Gökhan Gönül's kind of plain celebration, his failure to celebrate in the face of Fenerbahçe players. How did you interpret that?
Respect. I think that's the right thing to do. You played 9 years for that club. If you would celebrate like over the top, I think that's just shows a lack of class.
True, over the top would have been too much, but I mean, some celebration, some passion. I think there'll be a lot of Beşiktaş fans who would have been slightly annoyed by that lack of a reaction.
I don't know. I think it's in spirit of the club. I mean, Beşiktaş the club prides itself in carrying honor and such, but fans not always doing the same. But for me, that wasn't spirit of the club. I think that was. I tweeted immediately, Adamsın, Gökhan Gönül, respect. For me, that was the ultimate sign of respect and worthy of a player of his stature. If he would have celebrated, I wouldn't have blamed him. But I think, yeah, for me, this is... sometimes, you know, like when ex-players score against their former clubs, they don't celebrate. And it feels like a little bit of theatrics and trying to get some attention. But here, I think it was completely genuine. And yeah, for me... I respect him more after that. What about you, Burak?
I agree. I think it just shows you the type of like human being Gökhan Gönül is. So someone like a Caner, I'd expect him to go wild and sell.
Oh yeah.
Like, same goes for Tolgay. You know, when what was it? Colin Kazım-Richards, when he scored against Fenerbahçe when he was playing for Galatasaray, had a nice big celebration. I think it just says more to the character of the individual. And like I say, he was a great servant for a club, and I hated the way that he departed just because, you know, people were making it out that he was after more money. But he was arguably our best player and one of the captains of the team. So I was angry when, you know, he moved, because I thought it was our board that had messed up. And you know the same if you think of other players who've moved to clubs and, you know, they score and they downplay it a little bit. It just shows that he still has fondness for his time that he played at Fenerbahçe as well. So I hope he doesn't get too much of a backlash from Beşiktaş fans.
I don't think he will. I mean, especially at Beşiktaş have won, I think he would definitely not have gotten any backlash. But given the implosion in the second half, so another important thing, of course, Fikret Orman and Ali Koç meeting before the match, basically sending out a little bit of a message of this war between us is over. Of course, over the last couple of years, we had seen some difficult times between the two clubs. I think that was the right sign to go into this match. And ultimately, in spirit of that, this was definitely the right result. But it's such a match of two faces, really. Beşiktaş, I wouldn't call them. I didn't really see this rabid dog thing that you guys did. Though I even tweeted at halftime. For me, Beşiktaş not impressive in the first half. It was all too easy, I think, and that might have ultimately led to the implosion in the second half. I think it never really became a real match for Beşiktaş. Everything just came so easy in the first half, 3-0 up at halftime without really any serious effort, and I think that cost them the sharpness, because that was the lack in the second half, and Nabil Dirar, all credit to him, so good over that right wing there, but Beşiktaş just lacked that sharpness in the duels in the second half. Just that's putting their head in front of everything kind of type of mentality. We have a 3-goal cushion. It doesn't matter. Oh, they pulled one back. Doesn't matter. We still have a 2-goal cushion. Oh, well, they pulled another one back. Ooh, now things are gonna get hot. And that quick equalizer, for me, an ultimate failure from the coaching staff from Beşiktaş. Şenol Güneş, I don't know what he said at halftime, but it clearly wasn't good. Obviously, the team is responsible, but so is the coaching staff and the fans. Heading into that second half, the crowd was flat. You're 3-0 up against your arch nemesis. You should be steaming pushing the team forward and making a huge atmosphere, but they weren't doing that. For me, from the Beşiktaş side of things, a complete and utter failure in that second half from all aspects. But for Fenerbahçe, the opposite is obviously true. Ersun Yanal making 2 subs at halftime, putting on Valbuena and Andre Ayew. Ayew didn't really end up playing anything significant of a role in the match, but Valbuena getting the assist on the 2-3 was instrumental in those attacks on the right side, creating space for Dirar to overlap. That definitely was a good substitution. And yeah, I think a deserved result for Fenerbahçe given their second half performance. And you know what? I think it could have been 3-4. It also could have been 4-3, and Burak hitting the bar that should have probably gone in, and he also was denied by Volkan just before that. But Fenerbahçe also had some chances. A really big one right at the end as well, where Karius made a good save. This kind of a crazy match. And yeah, I think for Fenerbahçe, this is a draw that will feel as a win, and for Beşiktaş, this is a completely deflating result. For me, I think this is the end of their title aspirations, if they still really had those. And basically end of the season. No more European football, no cup football. Only thing left to play for is possibly that Champions League ticket, which are in contention for with Galatasaray, of course, but I think they're kind of in a decent position for third place. They're a couple of points ahead there, of course, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of a reaction in the coming weeks from Beşiktaş in a negative sense, where they drop down the table further. Ozzy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, especially given that they've got nothing else to play for, like you say. I can certainly foresee a dip in Beşiktaş form. But not to take any credit from Fenerbahçe, who in the second half were just, astonishing, really. They really surprised everyone, and probably even a lot of their own fans.
Definitely,
because it took a lot of character and a lot of mental strength to come back from 3-0 down. And like you said, at the end, they could have even won the game, which would have been something else, if they'd been able to make it 4-3.
Then it would have been one for the history books. I think it already kind of is, but that would have...
Already, yeah. It's knocking on the door of the history books, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Burak, your sentiments?
Well, I don't know what Ersun Yanal said to players at half-time, what was in their half-time oranges, what kind of guzzles they had, or whatever happened, but they just came out of the trap second half, and I was like, oh my days, what is happening with this team? We got... Obviously, Ayew came on, and we had Valbuena came on. Valbuena straight away with his trickery, this little French magician who's just delightful on the ball. I know we're not playing him because we're afraid that if he reaches a number of appearances, his contract is extended automatically, and he's on quite a high salary.
Yeah.
But he had.
He should be extended immediately. He's one of the best players in the league by far.
Yeah, but he's not
worth
worth $4 million a year for them. I'm afraid.
Well, he's not given the chance to play. But anyway, Burak, I cut you off there. I'm a big Valbuena fan.
Yep.
Yeah, me too. I mean, he hasn't played enough matches in the last couple of years. I mean, he's always been their best player. Not always. I mean, but he's one of those players that can make something happen out of a split second. So players like that, you always need a couple of those. I mean, Shinji Kagawa in the first half for Beşiktaş, I think he was brilliant. One of the few players that really stood out in a positive way for me in that first half. But you could see in the second half that, together with the team as well, but he physically was struggling, I think. But he was brilliant in the first half, and then we saw that in the second half with Valbuena. Nabil Dirar, for me, man of the match, though.
Yeah,
do you agree?
Kagawa, I must say, his first half, he they say that players can turn on sixpence. That man could probably turn on a grain of rice. He was so smooth. He played and effortless, and he just made the game look so easy. And I think when we started to man mark him a little bit with a little bit more physical presence, it helped, and the fact that he tied out as well in the second half. I don't know how it would have happened if Laic wouldn't have been suspended. Would Kagawa have started? And
no, I don't think so. I don't believe so. Şenol Güneş is, for me, I mean, he was of course brilliant in his first year. He was good in his second year, but these last two seasons has just been burning the candle at both ends, and it's time for him to go. I think for me, this result is enough. This should be the end for him. I've been saying this for a couple of months, by the way. This is not something I'm just saying because of this, but the story of Şenol Güneş at Beşiktaş is done. It's finished. It's time to move on. He needs to go to the national team or whatever. Personally, I think a guy like Aykut Kocaman would be better for the national team, even because I think that Şenol Güneş is starting to get at that point in his career, 65. I don't know. I think he's a little bit out of touch. And yeah, for him the story is over at Beşiktaş, and this again showed that. But there's been so many instances this season, and I think this kind of also epitomized the season for Beşiktaş. That's 3-0 up, and then suddenly, I mean, I don't know. It's obviously a disappointing result for Beşiktaş, but not just that. I think on a much deeper level, there's so much wrong in the club. I mean, this team has plenty of good players, but they're not getting it out of it. There's a mental issue that's been there since the beginning of the season already. And also the reluctance of Şenol Güneş. He plays clear favorites with certain players. He has this tendency to destroy other players' confidence. He's done it with numerous players already, new players. Jermaine Lens, for example, if you compare him at his time at Fenerbahçe and then you watch last season, and even this season, I mean, this season he's finally starting to get some chances now, but I mean, if he would have gotten consistent playing time from the beginning and gotten the feeling that the manager was 100% behind him, I think we could have really enjoyed him. Now he's 32 years old, I believe, and basically kind of wasted 2 years of his prime just because Şenol didn't really know. I don't know if I'm liking him. Maybe I like Babel more. I like Quaresma more. Blah, blah, whatever. That's the end of my rant, though. But yeah, I'm done. I'm done with him.
Exactly.
Another interesting note, though, guys. Exactly a year ago, Beşiktaş won 3-1 at Vodafone Park against Fenerbahçe, and I want to point this out because 3 times in the last 4 years, Beşiktaş and Fenerbahçe have faced each other on match day 6 and 23. I mean, come on, guys.
Dun, dun.
The calendar commission, obviously, this is not a random draw. It's selected, but come on. A little bit of... Change it up a little, guys. Come on. Next season, I don't want to see Fenerbahçe Beşiktaş on match day 6 anymore. But anyway, I've been talking so much. Sorry for that. Burak, do you have anything else more to add? Obviously, for you, big moment, so...
Yeah, I mean, I thought Miha Zajc grew into the game quite well. He was absent for the first half an hour. Then he started to get his foot on the ball towards the end of the first half, put some good passes. He's got a good delivery on him, so that would be good. I bet the Slamar was probably thinking, where was this guy?
Set pieces were really good, I thought, and dangerous. But he also had that position in the... And I don't want to turn this into, well, he should have had a red, but also another second yellow situation where he clearly could have gotten that card right at the dead of the first half, where he makes a pretty nasty foul on Miran.
Lucky boy.
Yeah. But, I mean, no excuses. Beşiktaş have absolutely no excuses here. I mean, if anything, if this was before the VAR era, I don't think Beşiktaş would have even gotten that penalty. So, yeah.
And Fenerbahçe, so far this season, we've only scored 5 goals away from home.
Mm-hmm. And now 3 in 1. That's another feather on Beşiktaş's cap.
Yeah. And we just need to talk about, Hasan Ali Kaldırım's absolute thunderbolt.
Yeah, that guy doesn't score score a regular goal, does he?
Doesn't do tap-ins. And he's been affectionately renamed by me. He's not Hasan Ali Kaldırım. He's Hasinio Alizano Kaldırimovic. He's the best left back in the world, and I'm delighted that he's. I'm applying for a job to be the masseuse of his left thigh at the moment to keep it fit for the rest of the season. And I thought, when that goal went, I lost my cool.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, we've been decimated in the first half. We've come out and scored twice. Mm-hmm. And the ball just passed out to Hasan Ali, and I'm thinking, go on, son, have a go. Have a shot, think big. And, he aimed for the moon, and he reached the stars. So...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 great goals for Fenerbahçe today and on Thursday, of course. Not maybe his career best, because Hasan has got a couple of really good ones, but it's probably going to be contending for that number 1 spot, especially given the circumstances.
And like you say, it did feel like a win, just because of the way our season's gone so far. And we come back from a 3-0 deficit to get to 3-3, almost win it. And of course, Beşiktaş almost won it as well. And then we head into our next game at home to Rize, who are in a great run of form. But, this hopefully has galvanised the team. And I just want to say credit to the travelling fans as well. I think there was around about 2,000 who were just, in great voice for the whole game. So, the support on the road has been great, but for tonight, especially
throughout the season, Fenerbahçe, the home support has been fantastic. The fans have really re-embraced the team, despite the fact that their results have been so poor. But for years they were already kind of trying to push Aziz Yildirim out, and now with Ali Koç, there's finally that re-embracement of their club, and their support has been fantastic, I think. But we're going a little bit long, guys, so any objections if I move over to the standings?
No, go for it.
None for me, because we are not in the final 3.
Okay, moving on to those standings. Medipol Başakşehir still obviously the leaders after 23 match days with 51 points. Galatasaray in second place now with 45 points, 6 points behind the leaders. Then there's a 5-point drop off to Beşiktaş with 40 points, who are in third place, and they're 4 points ahead of Trabzonspor, who are in fourth place. Beşiktaş still go to Trabzon, by the way, so that's quite interesting. Then we have in fifth place Malatyaspor with 34 points. Konyaspor also have 34 points. Of course, they lost, and so did Malatyaspor. Antalyaspor sneaking into the top 7, 32 points now after their win this weekend, and then 31 points. Sivasspor are in 8th place. We have Alanyaspor sneaking into the top 10, 31 points now, and that's the same amount of points as Kayserispor have after their win, also 31 points. Then a 2-point drop off to 11th place Kasımpaşa with their 6th loss. Have lost everything in the second half of the season, so they're logically stuck on their 29-point tally for the first half of the season, and they're gonna have to watch out because relegation is coming for them, the relegation battle. Çaykur Rizespor continue their impressive climb in the second half of the season. They now have 28 points and are in 12th position, but their momentum is surely positive, so they'll be out of that danger zone real soon, I think. MK Ankaragücü are then on 27 points with in 13th place, and Fenerbahçe in 14th place now with 25 points, the same amount as 15th place Göztepe, and then we have obviously Bursaspor, who lost this weekend against Başakşehir on 24 points. They're the first team in that bottom 3 at 16th. Erzurumspor didn't get a result, 21 points. They logically remain 1-2 last. And then Akhisarspor, with their late defeat, they remain bottom, but they would have remained bottom regardless if they would have gotten that point or not. So that's the standings for week 23 of the 2018-2019 Super League season. No major surprises, perhaps, unless you call the derby result a surprise, of course. Guys, I want to thank you very much for being part of the show once again. Let's briefly talk about reactions. Did you guys get any positive reactions on the pilot episode?
Oh yeah, indeed. We got a lot of positive feedback. A good amount of downloads, which hopefully will increase as the episodes go on. Yeah, it's been a great fun adventure so far, and long may it continue.
Same here. Friends, family I've recommended to enjoyed it greatly. It's been keeping them company on their commute to and from work. And also I've sent it around to a few friends who hopefully will be having conversations with as well later on. So it's all been good. And again, guys and girls listening, if you have any feedback, for us, please tweet us. I'm sure Kaan will plug our Twitter handle shortly, but we'd love to hear from you and any feedback you have on what you'd like to hear next on the show. So, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, Afghanistan.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much, guys and girls, of course. I don't want to be sexist here. Thank you very much for downloading. Thank you very much for listening and subscribing. Please drop us a 5-star iTunes review or wherever you drop your review. Doesn't matter. You can indeed follow our brand new Twitter account at Footy alla Turca. Footy with a I and a E, not with a Y. And you can, of course, follow our hosts of the podcast. Those handles will be in the show notes where you can find them at your own leisure. I'll also add the Football alla Turca Twitter account there as well. I think that's gonna do it for us for this week of for our Football alla Turca episode. Everyone, thank you for listening, and have a good night.